Hello and good morning, everyone. Today, we will be discussing the topic climate change, a threat to humanity and ways to combat it. Climate change is one of the most urgent global issues which affects our environment, health, and even our future generations through rising temperatures, extreme weather events, and even environmental degradation. So before we begin the discussion, I want to introduce our panelists. So for the first panelist is Wan Muhammad Harit, who will be sharing insights on how climate change affects food security. Moving on to our second panelist, which is Shazana, who will focus on the impacts of climate change on our ocean. And moving on is our third panelist is Batrisha, who will discuss the roles of international policies in addressing this climate change issue. And our last panelist is Alia, who will explain the issue of deforestation and its connection to climate change. So now that I've introduced all of our panelists, let us begin with our first panelist, Harit. Could you please share your views on how climate change is affecting food security and why it is a huge concern for us as humans.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Aidit. So, when we're talking about climate change, it's not always about the melting iceberg, but it also involves something that we all care about, that is food. It is not solar panel, not some agreements or international policy, but food. The thing that you cannot live without. Because people don't realize climate change is not just about melting ice, it is also messing our supply food. Rains come at the wrong time, droughts last too long, and floods wipe out entire farms in one go. And farmers who's been doing this their whole life, they don't even know what season to expect anymore. When harvest fail, food prices will go up, and it will affect them. Uh, they will be the first individual to be affected by the price inflation. But here's the thing: we already have solutions. We have crops that can survive droughts. We have better ways to water farms, smarter farming techniques built on changing climate, and the answers always exist. But we are just too slow to use them, especially in poorer countries that need them the most. It is like having a medicine and just not giving it to the sick. So, what do we need to do? So, governments need to take farming seriously when making climate plans because we need to fund better, smarter, and more advanced agriculture, not as a side note, but as a top priority. Because when the food runs out, everything else will fall apart. Economy, stability, people's life. Climate change and hunger are not two different problems. They are the same problem. And if we keep ignoring that, we are not just losing the climate fight, but we are losing the most basic things human needs to survive. Thank you. That's all from me.
Thank you for that very detailed and insightful explanation. Now let's move on to our second panelist, Shazana. How is climate change impacting our oceans and marine life?
All right, I agree with what panelist one state, which is about our food security. But now I want to direct your attention to the other 70% of our world, which is the ocean. So the ocean is not just a body of the water, but it's actually our primary life support system. It absorbs about 90% of excess heat that is generated by global warming, like carbon emissions and so on. However, the ocean is now reaching its limit. So my focus on today is why ocean health is actually the silent threat to humanity and how we can use blue carbon to fight back. So the threat isn't just about rising sea levels. It's actually about chemical change that we call as ocean acidification. As the ocean absorbs more carbon dioxide, it actually lowers the pH level. So this is actually devastating for the organisms like coral and shellfish, which are actually the foundation of the marine food web. So if these organisms fail, then we face a blue food security crisis. So over 3 billion people that rely on fish as their primary source of protein could cause massive fish migrations and death of coral reef, which act as natural storm barriers. So without these healthy reef, coastal communities, including in Malaysia, are going to left completely defenseless against the superstorm that we are seeing in 2026, which happens quite more often than it used to be. So how do we actually combat this? The answer lies in blue carbon. Ecosystem like mangrove, seagrass, and salt marshes can sequester carbon up to 10 times faster than tropical rainforests, which protecting these isn't just about saving nature, but it's also like high speed climate solution kind of. So we also have to expand marine protected areas. Like currently, there's like 10% less of the ocean is like protected. So we need to reach about 30 goal, protecting like 30% of our ocean by 2030 to allow the fish stocks to recover and ecosystem to build resilience. So finally, we must support the green shipping, like reducing the carbon footprint of the massive ships that carry 80% of the global trade. So like for the current situation, like the war, so the footprint is kind of being reduced right now because of the Hormuz. The shipways is currently being blocked by Iran. So, in conclusion, we cannot have a healthy planet with a dying ocean, but by focusing on the climate action, the SDG 13 that we choose, which is the climate action, we address the root of the climate fever and protecting the blue parts of our planet, which is the ocean, that is the most powerful tool that we have to ensure a stable future for all of the humanity. So thank you. That's all from me.
Thank you very much for that statistical explanation. Yes, we totally agree that the ocean plays a very big role in our climate in on Earth. So yes, we really need to protect any marine life with the protection of us humans. So let's move on to our third panelist, uh, Patricia. What role do international policies play in combating climate change?
Thank you to our fellow moderator. Now I want to talk about the role of international policy as one of the ways to combat climate change. I don't know if some of you guys have heard about Paris Agreement back in 2016. The Paris Agreement uh, just happened. They do the agreement about the purpose of the Paris Agreement is to provide framework for every country in order to combat climate change. And the target is to limit global warming to below 2 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels by end of century. And it also to attempt to keep within 1.5 degrees overall. The Paris Agreement sent each member country to submit their national determined contributions to choose their goals, and it actually does not require to hit their goals lah. Malaysia has sent its NDC, National Determined Contribution, back in 2025, which is, we call it as NDC 3.0. NDC 3.0 focusing on these few things. The first thing is about transport decarbonization. Malaysia has made major investment in building ECRL, MRT, LRT to reduce road transport emission. And as well as other alternative, we Malaysia citizen currently use electric vehicle, and it also suitable in this current situation, which is the increasing price of fuel. And second, Malaysia is focusing on reducing carbon dioxide emission. One of the ways is by capturing methane from solid waste management and industrial wastewater treatment facilities. And lastly, Malaysia is focusing on forest and land use. Malaysia aims to conserve at least 20% of terrestrial areas and inland waters by 2030 through an effectively managed and ecologically representative system of protected areas and other conservation measures. That's all from me.
Thank you so much on your perspective on how these international policies can help in combat climate change. So finally, let us hear from our fourth panelist. Uh, Alia, could you explain how deforestation contributes to climate change and what can be done to address it?
So thank you for moderating, Muhammad Aidit. So for my focus point is about deforestation and its impact on climate change. So if everyone is wondering what is deforestation, deforestation is like the large scale removal of forests, which is mainly caused by human activities such as logging, agriculture, and urban development. So in Malaysia, forests are often cleared for palm oil plantation and infrastructure projects. So I would say trees are cut down faster than they can grow back. So this is why deforestation is a threat to humanity, is because the forests act as a carbon sinks. As we all know, they absorb carbon dioxide from the atmosphere to make photosynthesis process to make a food. So when the trees are cut down, the stored carbon is released, which is it will cause increasing in greenhouse gases. So this will accelerate global warming and climate change, but it also can cause by loss of biodiversity, as we all know, which is animal lose their habitat is one of it. So in Malaysia, deforestation has led to disruption of water cycle, like flash flood, especially during heavy rain seasons. So cases of deforestation in states like Pahang and Sarawak have been linked to flooding and habitat destruction. So when forests disappear, it's like we don't just lose trees, we lose one of our strongest defenses against climate change. So, in my opinion, there's a way to combat deforestation is by promote reforestation, which is what is reforestation is planting trees to replace those cut down. And then I would suggest to enforce stricter laws against illegal logging and encourage sustainable agriculture and land use, which is the last point is support eco-friendly products, which is it can help by reduce demand for deforestation. That's all from me.
Thank you to all of our panelists for your valuable and explanationful insights. At this point of this discussion, I would like to open the floor to any of the panelists for a discussion. Does anyone have any questions or would like to respond to any of our panelists' points shared?
No.
So since there isn't any points that wants to be added, I would like to conclude this discussion. So it is very clear that climate change is a serious and interconnected threat that affects many aspects of human life. From the perspective of food security, we see how changing weather patterns can reduce crop production and threaten access to food for the majority of the human population. In terms of the ocean, rising temperatures and pollution will and can damage marine ecosystems and affect the biodiversity of our seas and oceans. While international policies play an important role in coordinating global efforts, but their effectiveness depends on strong commitment from all countries. At the same time, deforestation continues to accelerate climate change by increasing carbon emissions and destroying natural habitats. So, we have had a very engaging discussion today, highlighting that climate change is a serious threat to humanity. However, through efforts such as protecting food security, preserving our oceans, strengthening the international policies, and reducing deforestation, we can work towards a more sustainable future. With that, we have come to the end of our discussion. Thank you to all of our panelists and everyone for your active participation in this discussion. Thank you once again.